welcome everyone to day 5 of Suburban Action Week. Today we'll be hearing about Kane and Kendall Counties. So I'm Maggie Sherwinski from the Active Transportation Alliance, and my colleague Heather Shady is here, also from Active Trans, our senior planner. So today we've got Jackie Forbes. She's the Chief of Planning and Programming from Kane County Division of Transportation, and she's the Council Director of Kane and Kendall Council of Mayors. And we also have Troy Simpson, the Regional Planning Liaison and Bicycle and Pedestrian Coordinator at Kane and Kendall Council of Mayors and the Kane County Division of Transportation. So I will pass it over to Jackie and Troy to get started.
All right. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone.
So for starters, Maggie already gave introductions, but I'll go ahead and let Jackie introduce some of the work that she does, since there's a little bit more in there.
All right, good morning. Thanks to the Active Transportation Alliance for inviting us this week and organizing this entire week. It's been a lot of great sessions that are happening, and anyone can go back and watch them again, which is really the great part about being able to record these meetings now. So a little bit about me. I've been with Kane County for over 10 years now. The last 5 have been with the Division of Transportation. I started out in the Kane County Health Department. I was the health planner, and part of my role there was to work with the land use planners and transportation planners within the county to try and work with them to consider public health in their planning decisions. I would show them how simple decisions that they would make, like completing a sidewalk gap, would make a difference in the health of our community. At the time, planners did not think much about the health implications of their work, but I think now there's a much greater understanding and consideration of public health in the planning world. So that's been a big change since I first started 10 years ago. And now I work for Kane County Division of Transportation. I am responsible for planning and programming our federal and local funds for transportation projects. I also work with our Ride and Kane paratransit service and in the Kane Kendall Council of Mayors as the organization that's distributes federal funds to our municipalities in Kane and Kendall counties. So that's kind of a little bit of my background and how I got here. And Troy will go ahead and give his spiel.
So my name's Troy. I consider my primary title to be the Bicycle and Pedestrian Coordinator on behalf of the Kane Kendall Council of Mayors. And I handle primarily CMAQ, ITEP, TAP-L. Those are trail funding sources that often get utilized, as well as safe routes to school and highway safety improvement program projects. And I also serve as the Kane County DOT ADA coordinator. The ADA plan for the county is currently undergoing a refresh and update, just for the sake of getting it to currency for some of the projects that have been completed in the past couple of years. And yeah, I'll let Jackie describe the other 2 positions.
So as part of our Kane Kendall Council of Mayors staff, we also have Noah Jones as our planning liaison, also transportation planner with KDOT. He handles our STPL and STP bridge projects and any other assistance as far as our council duties go. And we also have Tom Rickert, who's the council executive director. He has oversight of all of the council activities. He has been with Kane County for over 30 years. He's also the chief of staff and deputy director at Kane County. He also serves as chair of the CMAT Bicycle and Pedestrian Task Force and is very involved in our bicycle and pedestrian planning at KDOT. So we wanted to mention both of those 2 as 2 other folks who are working on this initiative at Kane County. Next slide, please. So the way we're structured in our Council of Mayors is we have several committees. We have our full council, which acts as our executive committee, where all of our mayors and administrators from the 2 counties meet generally 2 to 3 times a year to make executive decisions on different things that are coming up. We also have guests who come in. We have RTA, we have PACE, Metra, Illinois Tollway, IDOT, and they give presentations and updates on some of the work they're doing. So it's a good way to keep in touch with everything that's happening in transportation in our region. We also have a transportation policy committee. So this is with our transportation heads from the two counties, plus our city engineers, our municipal public works staff, and they really do kind of more boots on the ground work as far as our council goes. And they look very closely at how we distribute our federal transportation dollars to our communities. And that is staffed by Noah Jones. And we also have a bicycle pedestrian committee. This meets 4 times a year. Different bicycle advocates come to our meeting, including all of our municipal partners, our park district partners. And it's just a nice forum for everyone to come together 4 times a year and discuss what's going on in the bike ped world and share some of the successes and challenges that they're having. Troy Simpson is responsible for that committee. So that's kind of how we're laid out as far as our council goes.
And so to explain the role of the Transportation Policy Committee when we were talking about setting the rules of the road for federal funding, this diagram explains how the flow of federal funds comes to us and where we end up having programming jurisdiction. So from the FHWA, whatever the current transportation bill is, they set allotments to the state DOTs, and then the state DOTs give distributions to each of the area MPOs. So Champaign-Urbana, CMAP, Rockford would get a certain allotment. And from those allotments, because CMAP is a much larger coverage area, we have 12 sub-regional councils. We're one of those. And we get a certain allotment based on performance measures from the highway system, for which we are responsible for setting a methodology based on local priorities. And to that effect, as far as the local regional councils goes, we have one of the more robust methodologies with regards to bicycle and pedestrian facilities. Our most recent call for transportation projects, of the non-maintenance projects that were awarded, 75% of them included a proposed bicycle facility on our federal highway system. And part of that is due to the fact that 20% of our total points are allocated to Complete Streets initiatives. 15% of those are for the actual type of infrastructure itself. So that's relatively the level of service of the infrastructure being built. We award points for regional and local trail connectivity as well as connectivity to transit. And we actually did get a project that came through this year that provided additional PACE connectivity in the village of Carpentersville. And we also have 5% for applicants with Complete Streets policies. And that policy is being redeveloped as a part of our current methodology update, which is underway. And we'll have a 30-day public comment period after this July. So just to make you aware of some of the resources that we have, some of these have been developed from prior tools that we had just to make them more publicly available. So we have the Bike Ped resources page, which is listed on the Kane County Division of Transportation website. Pray this works for me. So we always have a updated posted bike map. We're currently in the processes of finishing some major projects, so we're waiting to get prints out as we've traditionally done. But we do have an updated bike map available there. And it is based on, we have a couple of different resources we use. For those that are interested in seeing what projects are going on around the region, we have an implementation dashboard, which is based off of our 2012 Bike Ped plan and all of the municipal plans that are contained therein. And essentially, those that are interested can go into this dashboard either from our Council of Mayors webpage or from the Kane County DOT webpage. And essentially, the rule of thumb is that anything in red is a currently funded project that's going through engineering. Pink are future projects that are anticipated to have significant costs. We have our existing projects as well as the attributes for all of them, what type of facility it is, as well as the planned projects, which are the projects that don't necessarily have funding at this time, but are more likely to happen as a part of municipal projects. And this can all be filtered out as well as by whether a bicycle facility is considered regional, so we can identify planned trail gaps, current trail gaps that are being filled. So I felt that that was just a pretty neat resource. And in addition to that, we also have the bicycle and pedestrian app, which was recently given a refresh earlier this year, or actually, sorry, last year, can't believe it's 2021, which has facilities in that same map by the facility type. current bicycle facilities for those that are interested in getting the most up to date. These tend to be more up to date than Google Maps, for example. So take a look at that if you're interested and you live locally. And there are more resources on that. Like we said, we list them both on our Council of Mayors webpage, as well as the Kane County DOT webpage.
Right, I'm going to spend a little bit of time now talking about our Kane County projects, give a few highlights, and talk in general about how we come to producing our different bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure projects and elements of them within our projects. So it is a practice on every project we're starting. We do analyze bicycle and pedestrian improvements that we undertake as part of our phase 1 engineering. Some projects though, like I'm going to give an example of culvert replacements out in the western rural part of Kane County. They may not have any infrastructure in place or anything that we're going to try to connect to. So in those cases, we generally will look at, is there anything we can do to widen, to make it a little bit easier for anyone who's perhaps cycling in the rural areas and would prefer a little bit of a wider shoulder, or making those accommodations if we can on those type of projects. But any of our projects that are more on the eastern side of the county, where we can put in bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, every project goes through the engineering phases to make sure that we have those connections. And we're looking for connections, what makes it easier, what is it, a pedestrian island that we need to put in, certain signalization changes that we might make. We go above and beyond what's required for the ADA compliance in that. So that's really a big focus of what we do. One story I like to give an example of too is we built a new bridge over the Union Pacific Railroad tracks in Elburn, Anderson Road. And when we started that project, we made sure we put in a multi-use path along the side of it. And there was pretty much nothing going on out there. And people thought, why are you putting a multi-use path out in the middle of nowhere on this bridge you're putting over the railroad tracks? But we were planning ahead for the future because we knew that there would possibly be some residential development right near where we put this bridge, because it was close to the Elburn Metro station. And sure enough, we have a large development going in there now. And a lot of people are using that multi-use path. Even before that residential development started, I would see people on the path all the time. So it makes a lot of sense for us to look at these types of infrastructure improvements when we're starting our projects and doing the major work and construction on them, instead of going back and trying to add something later. It's just not fiscally responsible to try and go back and do things when we could be doing it right from the beginning. Even if we don't see enough residents right now to use it, we know that there's future growth, and that's how we can accomplish our sidewalk gaps and things like that. So it's one of my examples I like to show. On the screen here, I have a couple of projects that I wanted to highlight. The first one is our Longmeadow Parkway corridor. This is a long, several mile project that we have been working on for several years now on the northern part of our county. It did include a new bridge over the Fox River as part of the project. That's really the major part, connecting two sides of the river together. And we were, from the beginning, looking at how we can connect the various trails that are already existing in the Fox River, anything that was in an area, and how people who live near where we were building this new roadway could connect to the new roadway and get over to those paths that were in place. So we're pretty excited that we've done a lot of work on that. The picture in the upper left-hand corner there is of our bicycle and pedestrian bridge over some of the new roadway that we put in. And at the end, there's another aerial shot so you can get a better idea of what this looks like. But this is just one way that we decided we wanted to make sure people were comfortable crossing from either side. This is north-south crossing here to go from either side of the Longmeadow Parkway roadway. And then that also connects to the bridge, which is over to the east, and to the trails that are there. So in that aerial photo, you'll be able to see that a little bit better, but there are a lot of accommodations made for bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. And again, it was a lot more fiscally responsible of us to do it now than to try and go back and do it later. In the lower left-hand corner is a project, our Randall Road Transit Infrastructure. So this is kind of a different project for Kane County. We partnered with PACE and received some federal money to go up and down Randall Road and improve bus stops that were either existing, or we moved them to a better place, and we added shelters. We added this concrete pads, and we made sure that there was a sidewalk to it and that connected to somewhere. So it wasn't like we were having these stops that were just kind of in the dirt on the side of Randall Road. Randall is a major arterial in Kane County. I always describe it as someplace where you're going to see your Home Depot, your movie theater, your grocery stores, Target, everything's up and down that road. So you can kind of picture how busy it is. So we put this infrastructure in, working with PACE, and that was a great partnership with them to be able to do that. In that photo, you see the artwork behind there. We've worked with some local schools so that their art departments can design some artwork, and we were able to put them on the glass there as a film, so that just to make them a little bit more attractive too. So kind of an exciting project. We are looking at doing some more work in the northern part of Kane County on Randall Road. However, we have some other projects that are in the works right now, improvements that will put in some bicycle and pedestrian accommodations and connect some more paths, and then we'll be able to take a look and see how we can add transit to that. So that's pretty exciting. Over on the right are a couple of Kane County Forest Preserve Districts projects that are pretty exciting. On the upper right-hand corner, there's the Raymond Street Tunnel that they are putting in. This is in the area of South Elgin and Elgin on the east side of the river, where we have the Fox River Trail. And there was a bridge there that had washed out a long time ago. It's probably been 15 years. So there's been a gap in that trail for a long time. Well, they were able to secure some federal funding and put a tunnel through underneath the Union Pacific Railroad tracks to make a connection again. And that was really, it's been a big challenge, and it's almost finished. They're hoping to have it open this summer. Right now, everything's on hold because of all the snow, but they have already put the tunnel through. We're able to punch to the other side, and just need to finish up everything and make that connection. Another project that they did that kind of went back to a bridge that washed out at the Fabian Causeway at the Fabian Forest Preserve, which is in the Geneva, Batavia area. There was a connection there from one side of the Fox River Trail to an island in the middle, and then a connection to the other side. Well, that one section had washed out, and for now there was an earthen berm that people could use to get to the other side of the trail. But they were able to patiently wait for the funding and the right time and put in this new section of bridge now, and take out what was this earthen dam and allow the river now to flow freely. That earthen dam was put in a long time ago, I think back in maybe the 1920s, to stop the flow of the river on that side. So it was really a win-win, because they were able to put a new bridge in and then put the river back to the way it used to be. So that's kind of some exciting things that have been happening in Kane County and are getting ready to be finished soon. I wanted to let you know, because one of the questions we get is, when can you come and talk to us? When can you find out what's going on with these projects? And the best way to find out is something called our 5-year transportation plan, or our TIP. This is the capital plan for Kane County, and I put a link to it here. This is updated annually, and you can take a look at all the projects that are out there. We have short project descriptions on all of them, but most importantly, you can see what phase we're in. If we're in phase 1, you can see there's funding there, then that's the time to reach out to us and talk to us. What kind of bicycle and pedestrian accommodations are you putting in? How are you making changes to the design so that it's more friendly for everybody to use these roadway projects? So I wanted to highlight that today as something that you can look at. Our next one's hopefully going to be posted in April after it's approved by county board, but right now it's the 2020 through 2024 project list in there. So take a look at that, and I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea of what we're doing in the county, and how you can take a look at what's coming up.
All right, so a little bit more on my end, although with one of these, Jackie's a bit more familiar with it than I've been, because it was already under construction by the time I took over. The Aurora Transportation Center Bridge in the city of Aurora is an east-west connection between the Aurora Transportation Center, the Roundhouse, if you're familiar, to the west side of town. And that bridge is supposed to be finished by this summer to allow people to cross. There were some punch ticket items they couldn't get in because of supply chain issues. Some of those were railings. So naturally, you don't want to be operating a pedestrian bridge without railing. So there's a rendering concept of it there. We had some construction photos, but they weren't necessarily from the best angles. But go down there and check it out if you get a chance. It's really cool. And there are a couple of other municipal projects on here too. We don't have cool renderings of them because they're just kind of standard side paths along roadways, but we do have these clips from our map to show how they're related. One of these is in the city of Elgin. It's actually a 10-year-old project that they're really pushing for now, that some of the US 20 work is done and they're making plannings for a Fox River crossing. That is in the top right corner, the bike route number 4 for the city of Elgin in their bike plan. So all 3 of those segments are part of it, and their phase 1 engineering was finally approved just as of last year. So that's an ongoing municipal project that is CMAQ funded. The map of the city of Aurora down on the bottom left is showing the New York Street project, which is a gap that we applied for STP shared funds from CMAP for, and as well, we put in our STPL funding that we have jurisdiction over to complete that. That's part of the city of Aurora's east-west bikeway plan. And you can see a couple of other projects that are programmed in red on the west end of it. One of those is a newer project on Galena Boulevard. My cursor's right over there. That's also helping complete that east-west bikeway. So you can kind of see how, at least we, to the best of our ability, try to help all of our efforts match one another's. And then in the city of Geneva as well, this is a state route, Route 38, where a side path is being put in as a part of their proposed project. And that's also an STPL funded project on our end that has ITEP money from previous application cycles. And that's a really awesome project because the east side of Geneva can really tend to be underserved relative to the rest of the city. And there are a lot of really staple needs, pharmacies, all the convenience stores and that sort of thing that it's providing access to. And there are retirement facilities on that side of the river too. So it's really going to create a good pedestrian connection in a place that hasn't had it. But that's kind of a roundup of some of the big municipal projects that are going on. And of course, you can always revisit that map we showed you earlier to get a look at the most current ones. We won't get everything if there's a local municipal project, but because we track all the federal funds, pretty much anything major that's going on, we're going to be able to see in there. And then that concludes it.
And I wanted to point out on this photo that I had mentioned earlier. So this is an aerial view of that same bridge that I showed you a picture of for our Longmeadow Parkway. If you look, this is facing southeast. You can see the tree line that right beyond it is where the Fox River is. So you can see that we have the pathways going out that way. And then on the bridge itself, there is bicycle pedestrian, not a path, but on the side of the bridge itself, there is a crossing there over the river. So there's a couple of different ways that you can access this bridge and get to the other side of the river. So it kind of gives you an idea. This is all brand new roadway that we have put in, and it will connect all the way to the other side on the east side of the river. So that's some exciting stuff that I wanted to point out here. And that is the end of the presentation. Do we have any questions, and we'd be happy to answer?
Yeah, we have a few questions, Jackie, so I'll get started reading them. So the first one's from Active Trans, I think it's Maggie. So she's wondering how often are STP funding methodologies reviewed and updated? And then a follow-up question is, has the methodology been moving in the direction of prioritizing complete streets projects?
So the last revision was actually done prior to the time that I was there. The only change that happened this time was the addition of the complete streets policies. We were getting that element of it started. We are making revisions to it this year as a part of the active program management rules from CMAP. So all of the sub-regional councils, I was actually just in a meeting with them last Monday, we're undergoing the process of revising our methodologies based on the information we collected from the previous year call. So those are happening on a relatively similar schedule to what happened with CMAP's STP shared fund methodology revisions. And as I've understood it, it's really supposed to be something that we're actively doing on a year-to-year basis, making adjustments as we are able. But of course, we have to wait for the information to come in to really justify. And we did some pretty significant analysis on ours from last year and presented it to our committee. But Yeah, that's really supposed to be happening between the calls. So CMAP will do a call 1 year, they'll do one 2 years later. We alternate 1 year, we do one later. And during the downtime, after the dust has settled, is when we take a look back at what was done and make revisions as we can.
Great. The next question is from Ralph. Does your group use bike counters to measure trail usage? And do you know of other county entities, not just Kane Kendall, who use such instruments?
That might be better for Jackie.
No, I don't believe we have anything like that. We occasionally will send staff out to do some bike counts. I know CMAP sends staff out to various places in the region to do physical counts. I believe the Forest Preserve District of Kane County was considering some sort of bike counting at their entrances to their different forest preserves, but I don't know where they're at with that one, unfortunately, but I could find out for you. I'm not sure about other counties if they use them or not.
Yeah, I know that I think Cook County Forest Preserve District has occasionally. I'm trying to think of others, maybe Lake County, but nobody's doing it regularly.
Not a permanent basis type of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just mention that also, if you're looking just for some other stats on usage as an advocate, you can look at the Strava heat maps and see if there's any hot spots in your area or trails you're interested in, and you might find some data through that.
Yeah, we've got the Strava dashboard, Metro dashboard up for ours. We're doing it as a part of our methodology review, just to review some of the usage data. I know all the data is super disjointed, and they all tell you something different about bicycle ridership, but yeah, we're for sure taking advantage of that free service right now that they gave us during COVID.
That's fantastic. Okay, another question from Ralph. So for transit infrastructure, did you consider adding bike racks? So I think this is around the bus shelters.
Oh, that's a good question. We did not, I don't believe it was part of the overall plan originally to put in bike racks. That's a good question. Since you're allowed to bring your bikes to the PACE buses, perhaps they thought you might be taking it with you rather than riding your bike to the shelter. However, since we are looking to do some improvements on the northern part, I'll make sure that we take a look at that, and it's possible that maybe on that concrete pad we put a couple of bike racks on there for you. Good idea.
Quick question to that. Have you guys, because I've seen some PACE buses where the bike racks are actually full in some cases, even in areas where you might not necessarily expect, with the max of 2. Have you guys had any conversations with PACE with regards to, like, my college town even had bus racks or bike racks that carried, it was like 4 to 6 bikes, depending on the one. Has that ever come up?
To my knowledge, no. Maggie's shaking her head no too.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard of that. I didn't know that there was buses could do more than 2. So
Yeah.
Something to think about next time we talk to PACE and just see if they've ever looked into it.
Yeah.
Another question from Ralph. Are you planning a ribbon cutting event for the Raymond Street Tunnel this summer?
Yes, we had our bike ped meeting yesterday, and Monica Myers, who's the executive director of the Forest Preserve District, said they will have a large ribbon cutting. They don't have a date yet, but I'm sure they will be advertising it. It's very exciting.
Great. A question from Everhart. How are you coordinating infrastructure tie-in with neighboring counties, especially McHenry?
That's a good question. I will say from the county level, we work closely with our neighbors and have a general idea of when they're doing work. And Randall Road is a great example of one where we could work together on it. I don't recall what we have up there right now, but we would probably reach out to them and talk to them about our ideas that we're doing. I know on the paratransit side, we try and keep in touch with all of our neighbors on issues that we're doing there. That's a good question. But generally, we work closely with our neighbors on whatever projects. One example is our bike app that we did. We did work closely with DuPage County, kind of mirrored what they did. So that way folks who were riding their bikes and crossing county lines could just switch over to another app and it would look very similar to them. Anything you want to add to that, Troy?
Yeah, with regards to project coordination, as a part of the current SCP shared fund call, we have been in talks with specifically Emily Dowcher from the McHenry County DOT on their Randall Road project, which I believe that they're applying for funds for in this current cycle. And part of what we're able to do as a part of that call for projects is for bordering projects, we can essentially assign priority points if it has a benefit to our region. So that's kind of one of the ways that CMAP encouraged local governmental coordination that has shown up to some extent with McHenry County and us. And then of course, the implementation map, we've gotten quite a few compliments from local engineers on it that, that they're very helpful for them to understand when a project is going on and to be able to get a quick verification instead of going through their traditional mediums of just immediately going for old style communication, asking each other just plainly on the phone.
Great. Another ribbon cutting question. When will there be a ribbon cutting for the Aurora Center Bridge this summer, or when?
There's supposed to be quite a large ribbon cutting for that bridge as well, yes.
Okay.
I think there's going to be a lighting ceremony for it as well, because it has a pretty nice LED lighting scheme.
That sounds exciting. Do you know when that might be planned, or is it still in the works?
It's a more nebulous date right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have a compliment from Ryan Peterson saying, "Great job, Jackie and Troy." And then from Dave Simmons, he's sharing an update. The city of Aurora recently applied for bike-friendly community status from the League of American Bicyclists. And as a part of their review process, the league wants your input on bicycling in Aurora. So if you've ever biked in the city, take a minute to complete a survey that Dave linked to and share your input. So that's a good tip if you're familiar with the Aurora area, help them get that status and get recognized amongst the different bike-friendly communities.
City of Batavia as well. They're trying to apply for silver status as opposed to bronze right now. And they've got an application out.
That's good news. A question from Randy. Are there any long-term, or is there a long-term plan for a bridge for the Prairie Path over Butterfield Road?
We know that, Troy and I laugh, it's very painful there. We understand. At this point, we've been trying to talk to IDOT about it because Butterfield Road is Illinois Route 56, so it is technically their jurisdiction. They are well aware of it. We've had many conversations with them. We've talked with the Forest Preserve District of Kane County. So it's on everybody's radar. I honestly don't know where we're at in a planning stage. It would not be led by the county, but it's something that we would support for sure, because we know that it's a dangerous crossing there. So I don't know where that's at, unfortunately.
Since Dave Simmons is on too, I know that Ed Barsadi worked with IDOT to revise Chapter 17, the bike guidelines from the IDOT BDE. Is there anything, say that it's determined that a non-grade crossing wasn't necessarily warranted. Some of the stuff that's come out with the step guides and the FHWA, some of the revisions in the manual, could they potentially have an impact on what IDOT would do, say that they were to contract a large enough project on that road with that crossing, say rectangular rapid flashing beacon treatments, that sort of thing, larger crosswalk striping? And
I don't know if Dave wants to answer that.
Heather, if you're familiar with it, go right ahead. I know that IDOT was open to a lot of the suggestions that Ed provided. I don't know the specifics on what you just mentioned, Troy.
Sure.
Yeah. So the uncontrolled crossing guidelines, like you mentioned, were updated I guess it was a year and a half ago. And there is now more information about what to do with uncontrolled crossings. Butterfield it's 4 lanes there, I'm assuming. Is that right? Or is it
2 at that point?
It's
Yeah.
2. So potentially, but do you know the ADT? Sorry, I'm getting specific here, but so
It's about 13, 14,000 at that point.
Okay. So I'm trying to remember
Perhaps
exactly the
15.
guidance, but it's possible that an RFB would be allowed there as a crossing measure. But I'm sure IDOT would want to do a study and determine whether or not it actually meets their guidance before committing to something like that. Okay, the next question is from Eberhard. It's regarding Longmeadow Parkway. Is the bridge access to the river open yet? And if not, when is it expected to open?
Unfortunately, no, it's not open on the bridge yet. You can go from the west side up to, I think it's now Illinois Route 31. That's as far as you can go. You can see the bridge, it's complete. Unfortunately, you would do a Dukes of Hazzard move if you were allowed to drive on it, because we are working on the other side right now to make that connection to the east side of the bridge. We are looking at opening it in November or December of this year. So that's pretty exciting that we're that close. We've been doing this for 3-4 years now, the different segments. So that's how we've been building it. But the bridge is finished and we should have a ribbon cutting sometime in November or December.
Okay, a question from Ralph. I know counties do a parking lot census to determine the trail usage. That's just more of a comment, not a question. And I think we heard DuPage, was it DuPage yesterday, Maggie, that said they did that? Or no, it was Lake County. Yeah. So that's another way to do trail counts without having to put a counter down. From Randy, there used to be a small bridge on the Fox River Trail over a creek near Raymond Road that was washed out years ago. Now you have to get to Raymond for a small stretch to reconnect to the trail. Is there a plan to replace the bridge at any time?
That might be the Raymond Street Tunnel project.
I think that's it, yeah.
Yeah, South Elgin or Elgin area there, that was the little bridge that was washed out. So I had that picture of the new tunnel. So that will replace that bridge that's gone and should be ready this summer. Yeah. Yeah, the holes through now, that was the hardest part. So now we just have to fix it up and connect it and it'll be ready.
Great. So the next question, you may want to look at bike lockers as well as bike racks. I think this is back to the bus shelter.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I know that some of the metro stations have those now, and if we have enough space, and it's a place that might warrant, that's something we can look at that too. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a lot of experience using the parking deck bike racks at the Geneva metro station. There's a little rack under there and I always sneak mine over, but of course having to walk sometimes if you're running late gets a bit hairy. Yeah, I know Schaumburg has put in or is going to put in lockers at their metro station too. So they may have some tips if you're looking into it.
We have 40 lockers, if you're wondering.
Hey, Patrick.
Wow.
So 75% rented at this time.
Wow.
Awesome. Well, Geneva station I know is going to be redone, and I'm sure they'll be considering that as part of that update by Metro, but I can also make sure that they're thinking about it once I talk to them again.
Great. And the next question is from Paxton, who's also my dad. Sun City Huntley is in northern Kane County. We have zero connectivity to other paths in Kane, McHenry, and Huntley. Does Kane County work with McHenry County and Huntley to support Sun City?
Yeah, generally work together on any of the projects. Some of the challenges are who has jurisdiction over the roadway and the connections. Is it a county road? Is it a local road? I know that right now we're looking at making some improvements, some longer improvements in Randall Road up in the northern part. I don't know if it's at Sun City or not, but we do try and work together with them. Sun City being its own entity, you know, what happens, we try and connect everywhere we can, and we work with park districts too on that. So I'm not familiar with what's up there now. Maybe Troy, you know.
I honestly, for that far northwest, I would have to reference the bike plan map.
I have to look at the map to remember.
I bike up there sometimes with long group rides, but not too often.
When it comes to this world, we do work together with our partner communities to try and make connections. I know we've had a few challenges in some areas along Silver Glen Road near Randall Road. And we've been working with South Elgin, we've been working with the Forest Preserve District, we've been working with the Park District. So we're figuring out who's responsible for it and then trying to make those connections together. Even if it's not on county property, we do try to work together to make the connections that you're talking about, because it is really important. You know, building something and it doesn't connect to anything doesn't help anything. So we do try and work together and talk about things and how we can fund it.
Let's see, I think that's it for our questions, unless anyone, I just saw there's a couple more that just popped up. So Patrick is just noting that Schaumburg has utilized CMAQ funding to install bike lockers, and also to make sure that Public Works is on board because they'll need to be maintained quarterly, especially getting leaves removed in the fall.
Yes, that's good. Thanks, Patrick.
And then Terry says, chill mid-county be extended. I'm having trouble. Will mid-county be extended? There you go.
There are a couple of projects that recently happened. One of them was along Jackie Silver Glen. One of the bridges was updated to include a crossing that helped out the mid-county trail under the bridge. As far as Forest Preserve District projects go, I'm not aware of many projects that are currently in the works right now with the Mid-County Trail or any applications that were out specifically with the off-highway segments. But we've continued to work on our portions of it.
I know that in the past, the Forest Preserve had talked about trying to do an extension, and this, I think this is the Mid-County from Dick Young Forest Preserve South and connect some places there. They had applied for funding and didn't receive it. But if that's one of the sections you're thinking of, then it's on their radar for sure. I think they're just trying to figure out when they can slot it in their programming so that they can get that done. But it's certainly something they're looking at.
Great. Well, I think that might be the end of our questions. Maggie, I don't know if you want to sign us off.
Yeah, I'll sign us off. So yeah, thank you, Jackie and Troy, for the great presentation and the interesting, informative conversation with all the questions. Thanks, Heather, for leading that. And
Yeah, thanks for hosting.
yeah, you guys are doing a lot of great work. So it looks like, and I love that app. It's looks like a useful resource to really see what's going on in the counties.
It helps me more than anything. Keep track of everything.
Yeah, so thank you so much. And we've got another session at noon about art projects in crosswalks and bike lanes. So it should be an interesting session. So hope you guys can join us. And yeah, thanks so much. And yeah, we'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye, everyone. Have a good day.